Hi, folks. My name is Arthur. I'm a co-founder of Dataland. Dataland is an AI-powered internal tools platform. So what do I mean when I say internal tools? Well, these are internal-facing software apps that are meant to help improve operations. So you can think of things like admin panels, customer support tools, inventory management dashboards, any application where a user is it's not a read-only BI tool, they're actually taking some sort of action against the business. And so my co-founder, Howard, and I spent 4 years at Palantir, where we helped build internal tools at companies like Airbus, Jeep, and United. And after Palantir, we actually started a YC-backed company called Sidekick, and Sidekick essentially had a hardware rental component to it. And that meant us shipping thousands of devices all over the world. And that also meant a lot of internal tools, so things like configuring devices, shipping and logistics, customer onboarding. All of those tools were really critical to our business. But we realized that internal tools are still just pretty annoying to build. Either you build it from scratch, or you might use an app builder like Retool or Superblocks. But that also means that you have to use a pretty complex visual IDE in order to understand what's going on. And the second approach is you have to, or after you build that tool, you end up with a tool that's not necessarily easy to use. It might have, weird UX. After all, it's not the engineer's top priority to have to build a first-class internal tool, but also it's not necessarily very performant. A lot of internal tools just start to stutter and drag and show spinners even at thousands of rows of data scale. So when Howard and I were thinking about, okay, well, how do we think about internal tools that are, really good? And what are the common design principles behind them? We noticed that in the wild, they all kind of reduce down to the same thing. So, Robinhood, Uber, Walmart, Coursera, also internal tools that Howard and I have built, they all kind of resemble the same thing despite radically different data domains. You need a search bar, searching for a specific customer, order, or student enrollment, or seeing a table of that data, or taking actions against that data. So where's the button that I can click to issue a refund or do something with that data? So if all of these internal tools essentially have the same structure, it begs the question, why can't we just generate these tools automatically and without all of the engineering slog? And also, if they all reduce down to the same structure, why can't we just make the UI components here really high quality and performant? And that's where Dataland comes into play. So Dataland is the fastest way to build internal tools with AI. So I will also do the cardinal sin of a live demo. And let's say that maybe we're working at Whole Foods, and we need a way, there's lots of different teams at Whole Foods that needs to see all of the order information across every store. And clearly that's a lot of orders. So I'm gonna click on this table. This is a table that is loading 1 billion rows of data in the front end. Just to try to zoom in here, this is specifically 1.048 billion rows of data coming from Snowflake. And Dataland works with most popular data sources, Snowflake, Postgres, BigQuery. And what you see here is that, even if a user just scrolls through this table of data, it renders really seamlessly. I can also scroll all the way to the bottom if I felt really bored and wanted to do that one day. But the case here is that no matter how the data scales, the user is able to see all this data really seamlessly. We spent a lot of time trying to circumvent the browser's hard memory cap. This is 400 gigabytes of data that a user is able to see, and also importantly, search through. One other component of Dataland is that we use AI to automatically configure the right display formats for each column. And that's important because that makes the table actually usable for the user. Being able to see something like shipped is green, or pending is yellow, or canceled is red, or also color coding numbers based on their values, showing checkboxes instead of booleans. Dataland does a lot of the heavy lifting to make sure that the table is consumable and great to use for an end user, no matter how non-technical they are. On the search front, the most common workflow for a user is just to, hey, I want to see orders that mention this keyword or of this customer ID. So I'm going to do a search for the word sushi. And we see here that Dataland was able to find 100 million matches for the term sushi, full text search across this whole table in just 0.6 seconds, so virtually instantly. And if I do another search for something like a customer ID, maybe I'll search for customer, typing with one hand is fun, customer 0012345667. We see here that we pull up all 104 orders for this particular customer. So Dataland is also great for needle and haystack searches that are part of every internal tool workflow. The final pieces that Dataland does here is showing a record view on the right-hand side, so it's easy to view the data instead of having to scroll, left and right on this table. And most importantly, what makes this tool operational is the ability for an engineer to add, hook up buttons in the UI to trigger whatever custom business logic. So my engineer here has gone and configured 2 buttons, flag to logistics team, maybe in the case the order's late, or flag as fraud. So if I click on flag to logistics team, I see here that the developer, my engineer has asked me to provide an additional field called rationale. It's already passing in order ID and customer ID. That gets auto-populated from the row of data that I'm looking at. But I could also add a reason for why I'm escalating this order. So maybe I'll say sushi was late. Hit submit. And what that does is just goes and posts that payload of data to whatever endpoint that my developer has configured for this action. And we see here that we get some feedback on the bottom right-hand side. And configuring this sort of action is really simple. You can use something like Zapier to run the automation logic, or an HTTP endpoint for a Google Cloud function or an AWS Lambda. If I wanted to create a new action, I could just type, the button label, flag to logistics, and provide whatever HTTP endpoint I need to here, and tell me also what columns that this should show up on. And so the next thing that we can do is just show how we built this really quickly. So building this sort of tool is meant to be extremely fast compared to other internal app builders or building from scratch. So I'll go ahead and in order to create a new tool, I can add a new data source. So I can go ahead and add Postgres, test out the connection there. And in order to create a new tool, I have to choose a table that will form the basis of my tool. So I can search for something like the orders table, put that here. And I see Dataland is using AI to automatically configure the right display formats for this table, so I don't have to do much heavy lifting at all as an engineer. And maybe I'll call this orders refund tool. Go ahead and import the table. And that's literally all we had to do. Dataland comes with all the opinionated user experience to create this tool. It already shows me relevant actions based on the actions catalog my developer has configured. So it shows things like, give partial refund or give full refund because there's the order ID column here in this table. So one really common application or one really common problem that a lot of internal tools face is the maintenance cost. Business users want to improve on the existing tool all the time. So as an example, a support manager might want to say, hey, I don't want to just see all orders. I want to see only delayed orders and also sort those orders by customer lifetime order value, because that's how we should be prioritizing this queue of tasks. In order to do that, typically that would require an engineer rewriting some SQL, computing a new column. That back and forth can take a long time. And let's face it, internal tools, no one really wants to work on them, even though they're important to the business. So it's really important for the business user to be able to get more from the tool without having to block on an engineer. So that's where we can use Dataland AI. And the support manager can just type, see all orders with order delay. The best part about AI is that it can forgive your typos. Let's see, add column for customer lifetime order value. Sort by that, and let's say show all columns. So go ahead and fire that off, and what that will do is it'll speak with an LLM and get back a return SQL query. And importantly, that is all abstracted away from the business user. It just applied a new view that's now only showing me delivery delays that are greater than 0. Scroll to the right, I see, yep, delivery delays indeed greater than 0. And an additional column for customer lifetime order value, which is showing here as this extra calculated column. So that's great. The business user didn't have to wait on the engineer for any part of that process. They were able to do this themselves. And not only that, it can work within the same context of that tool, so you still see the action buttons, users can still search. It's an entirely new tool born out of the same data and actions, but that's important because the business user can achieve that. Now, the final feature I'd like to show you guys today is this concept called agents, and it's in beta. Our customers haven't started using it yet, but it's something we're really excited about. So instead of imagining just a human going through each one of these orders, reviewing it, and figuring out, what action I should take here, it's important that the agent can just process this entire workload of order tickets and figure out what is the next best action. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new agent. I'll name this guy, let's name him Bradley. We'll call him the refund assistant. And maybe we'll give Bradley like this little avatar, and I'm just going to type out a prompt here. I'm going to put the microphone down so you guys don't have to bear with my one-hand typing. Okay, so what I wrote there is see all orders. If it's a VIP customer order and the order is delayed, send a discount. If a new customer and the order is delayed, send a full refund. If anyone complains about food poisoning, please flag this for delicate handling. So I'll leave this in propose actions only mode for Bradley. And this way, it's easy to imagine an AI agent, pulling together all the data that they need to perform this workflow well, saving a lot of time on behalf of the operator. And the operator, all they have to do is just take a look and see, hey, does this logic seem correct based on what Bradley is giving me? So I can go in and take a look at the execution trace of what Bradley's doing. We see here that Bradley first takes a look at an order from this specific customer, Christina Beltran. Christina seems like a high-value customer. She's placed orders with varying amounts, ranging sometimes exceeding $200. As a result, Bradley is saying, hey, she's a VIP customer. Her current order has an order delay of 1 day. Maybe we should send a discount to her to keep her happy. So Bradley will continue to go through this whole queue of orders. And with something like agents, it's hard to imagine humans just sitting in front of regular internal tools anymore. It's much more likely that you'll have agents performing a bulk of the data collection work and humans to just okay or reject a lot of the actions that it's proposing. So with that, I have obligatory Dune 2 joke. Dataland is the fastest way to build internal tools with AI. It's 10x easier to build for engineers, 10x easier to use for business users, and importantly, AI agents. You guys can try us out today at dataland.io. We're live with, we launched a few weeks ago and have a couple production customers today. And my email's on the screen. Thanks.